talking about unlocking the hidden powers of the mind. This is going to be the spoiler alert. The hidden power of the mind is the subconscious. It is our subconscious, and it has three particular modalities, modes of operating that we are going to speak on. One of those being its ability to access information directly from the divine, right? Or one could say in other languaging, more universal languaging, to access infinite intelligence. And the other, to influence and affect life based on the intensity. People say the intensity of thought, some people say the intensity of desire, but I'm going to say by the intensity of our belief, right? Or the strength of our faith. We have the ability to influence reality. And then the third is going to be the programmability of the subconscious mind and how that can be used for our benefit, but ultimately seems to be at mass in the present day being used at the detriment of humanity. We're going to learn about how we can use all three of these different aspects of the subconscious to access our own infinite power. Okay. I'll be telling a lot of stories, and I'll be using a lot of my own personal life experiences to kind of, I don't know, contextualize everything so that it could just follow a particular flow and have examples that will allow you to see how we can implement this stuff into our own lives. Okay. And so before I even begin, I want to actually begin with a story and just tell y'all about this beautiful book that a brother of mine shared with me, wise brother. He said, hey, Khepera, man, the other day I was reading this book, and in the book, it's a book about a man who uncovers the fullness of his potential. And I said, oh, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. He said, so he was in this book, and he starts off, and he's an atheist. He actually doesn't believe in God, doesn't really believe in much of anything spiritual or otherworldly. He's a scientist, right? But one day God comes to him, and God appears as this light, but it was the sensation more so that flew through his body that made the man understand in that moment, I'm in the presence of God. And God gives this man all of the wisdom of what it means to be, right? To just be, just to exist, what life is, why we're here. And then the man knew for certain. He said, no, that's God. And so he asks God, he says, why would you come to me? You could have gone to, he said, I'm the atheist. He said, you could have gone to the Christian. You could have gone to the Buddhist. You could have gone to the Muslim. You could have gone to the Hindu. All of them seem to know you better than I do. And he said, no. He said, none of y'all knew me. He said, but now you know me. He said that he didn't go to the religious people because they thought that they already knew him. It was because they already had this preconceived notion of what God was. So much so that if they would have actually met God, they wouldn't have been able to recognize him. And I like to frame the story like that. I love religion and I love religious people, but and I love people of all spiritual foundations. I just love people. I believe that we're all the art pieces, the masterpieces of the divine. I believe that life itself is infinite potential expressing itself, and it's all deeply divinely connected. And just like I love myself, I love you all. And but it's very important that as we enter into this dialogue, that y'all maintain an open mind, right? If you go after a journey of seeking truth with the ideology that you already know the truth, then truly you're just seeking to validate that which you already know. And that's not going to ever lead to true growth in any way. So the only way for this to really be as valuable as it can is if you enter into this conversation with an open mind. Okay? So we'll move on. So when we talk about mastering consciousness, we must identify the fact that there's two portions to what we consider mind. Mind and brain are two totally different things. Our brain is a hunk of mass, it's muscle, matter, right? Whereas our mind is non-tangible, non-physical, right? The mind is the activity of the consciousness. It's the thoughts and the feelings, right? The things that about you that we can't see, right? There's the visible side to us, and then there's the invisible side to us. We all have beliefs, perceptions, intuitions, right? We have logic, we have an imagination. You know, it's so funny. The majority of who you are can't be seen at all. The majority of who you are, nobody can ever touch it. The majority of who you are, we do not even have the proper language to describe. And so when we talk about mind, let's first and foremost understand that we are talking about that invisible side to us. And that there are two aspects, two distinct aspects, because there's more like 13 aspects to that. And we'll get into it. But there's two distinct, and really three distinct. Let's just say there's three distinct portions of the mind, but two that we're going to focus on, okay? So there's the conscious mind, then there's the subconscious mind, and the third would be the superconscious mind, but we're going to primarily focus on the conscious and the subconscious for today's presentation. All right? And now our conscious mind is our thinking analytical brain. That's the thoughts, the willed thoughts, the willed visualizations. But then there's the subconscious. The difference here is like when you're utilizing your mind's eye consciously, we call it visualizing. When you utilize your mind's eye unconsciously, we call it either dreaming or receiving a vision. Hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. People are still trying to come in, and I'm trying to get the link out to people. Let's see. This is going to be the last interruption here, and I deeply appreciate y'all's patience. That's just for interruption there. Okay. Excellent. So we're going to focus here on this conscious and this subconscious. So when we utilize the mind's eye consciously, we call it visualizing. When we utilize it subconsciously, we call it dreaming or receiving visions. So there's this interaction where we recognize that one, we're the one producing, whereas in the other, we're the one receiving. Our subconscious mind is that receptive mind, that's just, it's just open, it's kind of vulnerable, as you would say. And then you have your conscious mind, that which is willing and producing and putting thoughts out into the world. But you see, our subconscious mind, as I said, is vulnerable, it's receptive, it is easy to program. And unfortunately, there are a lot of programs coming at us, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's just address the things that are already present in our subconscious minds. Whenever you begin to start a mindfulness practice of any sort, you start paying attention to your behaviors, really watching the things that you say and asking yourself, why do I say these things? Watching the things that you think, the thoughts that cross your mind, and really trying to trace them back to where they originated from. Was it a billboard? Was it something somebody said? Was it a TV show? Was it a song? Why do you think the way that you do? Right? And when you start seeing the things that you actually do in life, that your actions, the ways that you respond, and sometimes the ways that you react, when we can look at these things and we can really start to dig into the question of why do we do these things, and really when we get into trying to change, one thing that we will inevitably have to face is the fact that a lot of the things that we do habitually. They say that about 95% of all of our activity is governed by the subconscious, and what that means is simply that it's habitual. Supposedly, I don't know how they do these statistics, but supposedly 80% of the thoughts that we have every single day are thoughts that we're having every single day. What do I mean by that? The same 80% of the same thoughts that you had yesterday, or let's say the thoughts that you had yesterday, 80% of the thoughts that you have today are going to be the exact same. And they have been for who knows how long. you know, Supposedly we make very incremental shifts in the landscape of our mind. But the really cool thing is that you can transform your habitual mind. You are not stuck in your patterns. You are not stuck in your triggers. Your traumas do not have to live with you forever. I guarantee you this. If you've suffered from addiction, if you suffer from limiting beliefs or low self-esteem, things that are narratives, stories that we tell ourselves, those stories can be rewritten. I guarantee you this. You can transform your habitual mind, and the very first step to transforming it is actually acknowledging that it's possible. A lot of us have this false belief where we believe, right, that we're born into sin, or that, uh, you know, we're of the flesh and therefore automatically animalistic. Well, no, our bodies are of the flesh, but your consciousness is an unconditioned thing that is of infinite potential and has infinite power to be able to master this body, control this body, and tell it what to do. You could, like, you know, the salt, oil, sugar thing, right? Like, we can overcome that. The drugs, all the things, like anything that is like something that you know is getting in the way of where you want to be, you can overcome it. It is possible. The next thing to say is that I will. Once you know it's possible, then the next thing is to set the intention that I'm going to do everything in my power. Can I get everybody that's here? If y'all love yourselves, write in the chat, say, I will transform my habits, or I will transform my habitual mind, right? And of course, the final stage is the I am. When we go from I can to I will, and then to I am transformed. This is a day of transformation. I pray that you are all excited about this journey we're about to go on. Okay. See y'all up in the chat. People about to transform their minds today. No. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So as we said, we can transform our minds, but hey, the reality is we cannot ignore the fact that while we're seeking to gain control back over our own minds, back over our own patterns, back over our own reality, there are other people simultaneously trying to control our minds for us. They want to control your thoughts for you. This TV, what does this represent? This represents more than just media. This represents more than just the music, the TV. There's incentive systems, such as we call the economy, where we do certain things because we know if you don't, how am I going to pay for this, that, and the third? That means we're not fully in control of our time. And you say, well, you can always free yourself. Well, since like I was just born, who wrote the narrative that said that we had to be in a system to where we had to go figure out how to free ourselves just to enjoy our time, just to be present, right? Like this is a construct that I did not create or agree with. But how is it upheld? Institutions that have hijacked our minds and have us thinking and believing in certain patterns that allow for it to exist. Certain narratives that are constantly maintained by the media. And then we have nonstop distractions. So we never figure it out. And even if we figure it out, then all we know is the problem and we never know the solution. And all we do is talk about the problems and then it just makes us depressed, right? So a lot of people on their quote unquote spiritual journeys or their awakenings or just on just their truth seeking, people just reading, trying to find information. Sometimes they say the more information you get, the madder you get, because oftentimes we're just learning about the problem. We are still oftentimes too distracted to find the solution, right? Narratives are harsh. They shift the way that the world works. I said in the class earlier, I woke up the other day, literally like yesterday or 2 days ago or something like that. And I literally had the thought, in the past, I've always said race is a social construct that I did not create, right? And that was me just like acknowledging that race is a thing that oftentimes because of my skin color, my experience of life is different from somebody else who looks slightly just but a smidge different. And therefore we have to like acknowledge that, at least subtly, at least in our minds, we have to acknowledge it. It creates this little awkward moment where we're trying to find places to relate and things of that nature. And it's like, I've acknowledged like, okay, it's a construct, but I didn't create it. You know, it's not something I have to go along with, but like, I've gotten to this point in my reality where I'm like, race is a social construct that I can't wait till like humanity learns how to do away with. Like I can't, I can't wait until we have the ability to recognize that the way that we see each other, the things that we call stereotypes, is really just the narratives that have been repeated over and over and over again. The things that we've heard about that group of people, those group of people, and this goes well beyond race. This goes to different belief systems, to different this, that, and the third, to where everybody is divided. And that's intentional. There is an enemy that's trying to keep us divided, distracted, powerless. I want you to all get your power back today. When we can regain control over our own minds and learn how to fully get our minds sharp, gaining full control over our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and then we align our will with the will of the divine, we can truly walk through the gates into a heaven on earth. When more individuals can wake up to this reality that our lives are an outpicturing of our consciousness, and that there is a science, and there's a science behind how you reprogram the subconscious mind, and they are already using it on us to keep us slaves, and we could just take that science and use it in the opposite direction and make a beautiful world, not for the few, but for the many. right? We could shift this planet, and people will say things like, why do you talk about utopia or heaven on earth? Well, there's like 1,000,000,001 movies about dystopia. To be honest with you, you can walk out your door and it's a dystopia. You could turn on the news and it's a dystopia. And the reality is that being constantly bombarded by dystopian reality, I mean, your mind reflects the environment and creates these thoughts, and it begins to program the subconscious, and then only more of that is produced. So I just want to focus on the polar opposite so we can at least bring some balance into the world and some balance into your personal life as well. So here's what to expect from this class. So we'll be able to master manifestation, rewrite your reality through the power of your subconscious mind. Experience true mind over matter, transcend your behaviors, overcome addictions, and don't expect that in just one class, but but you'll learn how you can. You'll learn how to do it, right? And I've done it for myself and for many of my students. But overcome addictions, bad habits, and limiting beliefs. You'll learn many of the secret teachings of the ancient Kemetic mystery schools, and hopefully we'll learn how to 10x our productivity and accomplish more than your peers. Wait, I don't know what it says because it's blocked, but well, actually I can move this, can I? More than your peers could ever dream of. There we go. I didn't even realize I could move that. Anyway, so this is something that you can either put in the chat, say out loud, or say to yourself. But I want everybody in their minds right now to just think, before we get into this, before we really begin to dive in, to just think, is there a pattern? Is there a habit? Is there a limiting belief? Is there something there that may be in your subconscious? When you try to reach towards that goal, you have this many hours in a day, right? But it's like, I'm going to be more productive if I have more energy, but maybe I'm wasting time doing this activity. I'm wasting energy doing this activity or putting this in my body or doing this unhealthy thing. Or, I know that if I can get my energy right, I can align with the things that are right for me. If I can put out the right energy instead of always, reacting and being triggered and showing up so emotionally against everybody, maybe I wouldn't create such chaotic karma for myself, right? What if I could really hone in and master my own frequency and make sure that everything that's coming to me. Now, life is going to be challenging. It's a part of life. Suffering and struggle are not actually negative aspects. There are things that come to us to help us to grow. The hard moments are actually that which develops our faculties. So I'm not saying that life is always going to be peaches and cream and easy, but what I am saying is that your karma, things will still show up to help support you through those journeys. Even in moments where you don't feel supported, there are ways where you can at least stop yourself from making things worse and always stay on a trend, an upward trend. So really set an intention in your mind, get into your mind, and understand where you're going, what you need to change. Somebody said, man, I feel like I've been suffering for 200 years and I ain't even that old. Look, oftentimes, some things, another big aspect about growth is that another word for growth is lessons, and the interesting aspect of life is when we don't learn our lessons, they just keep being taught. And oftentimes it's not that we didn't learn it, we understood it intellectually. We knew I shouldn't do that. We know right from wrong, you know better. But when they say you know better, you do better, it's not that easy. The habitual patterns, the subconscious, we got to learn how to master that. That's a science. We're going to get into it. Now, who is this for? Really, if you're here, it's for you. If you are here, this is for you. If you've made it this far, if nothing I've said has rubbed you the wrong way, this is for you. But in words, that don't really define you because you're an undefinable, infinite, potentially having being. But in words, this is for the chosen, for those seeking inner peace, self-knowledge, truth, true spiritual devotees, those genuinely seeking truth, not just to validate what they already believe in. Those who are committed, open-minded, and genuinely seeking truth, right? Those seeking purpose and alignment. Those who have already experienced transcendent mystical experiences, but who are determined to go deeper in their journey of the exploration of consciousness. So for some, prayerfully, if I've done my job right, some of you guys in here might be like, man, we know about the consciousness and the subconscious. And so we want to be able to take it deeper. Certainly want to go deeper. Self-motivation, I can motivate other people, but it's hard for me to get myself going. Yes, been going through a huge awakening. Let's keep going through a huge awakening. All right, so it's time to dive in and reveal how fully developing our willpower, once again, that those faculties within, how as we fully develop them and fully gain control over this thing that we call our being and align with the will of the divine, we're going to learn and reveal how that is the key to living a meaningful, purpose-filled, high-quality life. Right? Now, before we fully begin in our class, I just want to give you all a little bit of backstory. Backstory to frame everything, to contextualize everything, and to keep it entertaining and interesting. So this picture over to the right is me and my beautiful family. That says, enjoying our lives in Mexico. uh, and this is a little bit about my journey and really the things I just want to share with you guys a little bit about what I've been able to manifest and materialize since I learned what I like to term the science of self-control or the fundamental mysteries of the mind. And once I started to really begin to grasp how this reality was operating, my life took a really, really huge turn, right? So first and foremost, it's just I met my dream girl, and got married, and now this is my wife, and we've started a family. We actually have another child, a second child on the way. So she's pregnant, and and this has just been beautiful, just starting a family, becoming a dad, and we do a lot of traveling. Been able to, can't say travel the world, but we've gone to quite a few countries, and like we've gone to quite a few countries. So um, we actually moved from Atlanta to California and did we like drove across the country and stopped in like every state that we could think of and just did as much as we could. And that was just honestly one of the most amazing journeys I'd ever experienced. And all the way over to the left, you see me, that's me inside of an Earth ship. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Earth ships, but I was like obsessed with the concept for a long time. I really have a deep desire to build an eco-village, a community of spiritually led, like-minded and like-hearted individuals who are desiring to live more in harmony with nature than this slightly dystopian technocracy is trying to take them to. And one of the building styles that I really fell in love with was called earth ships, where it's completely made out of recycled materials. And I had been watching videos about them for years, and this was like the first time I was able to actually stay in one. Then in the middle is Grand Canyon, and the last one I finally made it to LA. Let's see. I've had the opportunity to work with some of my absolute favorite artists. Actually, some of these are actually my favorite artists in the world. Up at the top is, it's not really actually important who these people are, but but these for me was like some of my absolute favorite artists. And I got the opportunity to either work with them musically or work with them spiritually, where I was yoga teacher or spiritual guide for some of my absolute favorite artists. Me and my family, we also model together as a collective. My wife is a model. I'm not a model, but somehow I attracted into my life the ability to model. And if you look over to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see we had twice we had the opportunity to be in Target and have nationwide campaigns where we were in every store in America having our our family, just representing just happy, healthy, harmonious families for the world. And on the bottom right, that's actually my mom standing next to that beautiful image. So that's really been an amazing thing for me. But beyond all of the external shifts that occurred as a result of what I would consider, and I wouldn't say that like, honestly, at this exact moment, I actually feel hyper mastered. Like I feel like I really have mastered my mind, but it's a very new thing, honestly. It's a very new thing. So, I mean, a lot of this has just been the results, the things that are come along on the journey. You still be fumbling, but like right now, I have a lot of discipline and it's actually extraordinarily beautiful. And I think the internal aspect of just feeling at peace with yourself, where like, wow, all those things that used to make me feel shame, all those things that used to waste so much of my energy, waste so much of my time, you know, um, in general, just like the false beliefs and false ideologies and perceptions. And there's this really cool thing I personally believe in. This is a belief of the ancient Kamites, where they consider it one of the four great truths, where they say that truth comes to those who are devoted to living righteously. And I truly believe in that. I feel like the better I've gotten personally at monitoring and facilitating my walk in life and making sure that I'm showing up in harmony with truth and honoring my principles, the more wisdom I seem to gain, the more truth seems to reveal itself. And oftentimes, truth can be difficult. It can be hard. It's sometimes it's not like it's always an easy internal journey. Oftentimes, finding truth means comparing all of the seemingly conflicting ideologies that are out there, um, until that which is true reveals itself. And sometimes that process of just being in the chaos that the harmony is birthed from, can sometimes be a lot, but it's what we ask for when we say we're seeking truth. And ultimately, it leads to a really empowering internal state. But how did I get to this point? Was I always like, so you got to ask yourself, like, was I always just like everything was just always flowing? And the answer is absolutely not. Literally, absolutely not. The first half of my life looked totally different. I honestly just don't have pictures of it. I don't have any pictures because it probably wasn't a lot of moments that I wanted to remember in the first place. But I grew up in a lake community with tons of trees, and that was a really beautiful aspect where I always had a lot of nature access to me. But ultimately, I grew up in poverty. When it came to a lot of the things that I desired to do, my parents did their absolute best, but I oftentimes seem like every single time I'd ask a question, the one thing I would hear was, "We can't afford that. Can't afford that." There's a lot of just dysfunctionality, not only just in my own household, but in my friends' households and the rest of my family, just like a whole family thing where it's just like it painted this perception that dysfunction was a normal thing. And even the concept of poverty, oftentimes your environment mimics where you're at, and so a lot of times the stuff that I'm seeing around me showed me that maybe the way that I'm growing up is how everybody's growing up. This might just be how it is. And my dad would say, honestly, which was, horrible phrases, but but it's just a reflection of where his consciousness was. But he would say things like, most people struggle, most people blah, 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 and it painted this perception that didn't lead me to thinking that I would have created the life that I've created. And ultimately, I can't take credit in any way. I don't say I've created this life whatsoever. I maybe have aligned with it, but in truth, things really, really began to change when I really got deeply involved in my spiritual journey. And I tapped into it a lot on the earlier call But my presentation, I didn't have the presentation earlier today, so it was all over the place. But I'm going to give y'all a brief, just little overview. When I was 4 years old, I had a really interesting encounter with what I would consider an interdimensional being. Believe me or not, I'm not here to prove anything, but more so it's to communicate that 4-year-old me, right, um, literally is laying down asleep. I'm woken up to a cloaked figure with a portal behind them, and they say, "We need you. Come with us." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Like, what's going on?" Dude had like a hat on that looked like a witch's hat. I'm like, "Wait, what in the world is going on?" But we locked eyes, and there was a sense of calm that overcame me. That was just like this, like what is this? Like what is this really? Had me starting to feel like maybe I should go with him. And I did, and I went through this portal, and on this other side, what I learned was that there was this planet, and it was being overtaken by this dark force. And this dark force had grown so strong that everybody was just going right along with the dark force. But that dark force was actually seeking to destroy that planet. It literally wanted to just eat it up, swallow it up, and literally like literally destroy it. And but all the people that were living on this planet, that depended upon this planet, didn't seem to realize that that was what was happening. They were like supporting the darkness, supporting the dark forces. But, you know, ultimately they were too scared to challenge the evil. They were too scared to challenge it. And so it made more sense to just go along with its agenda. And ultimately, throughout that cycle, um, so I was only 4 years old, human years, but it was like when I left, I entered into an entirely different body. Y'all may have ever heard of walk-ins or things of that nature, or if you just open-minded, yeah. but regardless, I lived in that reality till I was about 23, when this when it was like a deciding factor, what you would call like a tipping point, like right when the domino is about to hit, and it's like depending on which way it falls is going to determine how this whole thing goes. And I kid you not, like literal whole angels came out the sky, and and there was like a one being that was like a savior almost, that actually like fought off the like. And the evil is something that exists within us, but it was more so just these beings that had an agenda, a particular intention of destroying things. And so it's not to call it like a good versus evil, but rather like a somebody that's trying to destroy versus something that's more in favor of the construction and the maintenance and the life of things and the preservation. And so that was a really interesting experience. And coming out of that, being 4 years old, that painted my perception of reality very different from most people, where I was just always constantly seeking knowledge. And oftentimes when I would go to the church, go to my parents, go to whatever it was, a lot of people just didn't have answers that matched what that experience was. And so I was just always constantly seeking until, I actually found myself in a community of people. I found this cool intersection of between spirituality and music, where there was this group of people who were deeply spiritual, and yet they made quite professional music. Well, I would see celebrities coming in, all different types of stuff, you know, and so I just started hanging out more and more. But it was this really interesting moment when somebody passed to me. They passed to me a map, and they said, that's the map of the astral planes. And the map of the astral planes. So I was like, what you talking about? They were like, you ever heard of astral projection? And they start talking to me about astral projection. And I'm like, was that what happened to me when I was a child? Like, cause it would like happen over and over again. Like it was just the one time when it was like it felt like a physical thing. But then after that, it would be like, I would just be in the middle of doing something, and, you know, I just be there again, I'd be in this other dimension. I'd come back and I'd have sleep paralysis. And I had no idea what it was. Nobody around me could explain to me what was happening. I just knew it was happening. I was just accepting of like, this is my reality, right? So fast forward, and I'm like 18 years old, and somebody presents to me, or maybe I'm 19, I don't know, but somebody presents to me a map of the astral planes, or what they're claiming to be the map of the astral planes. And I'm like, okay, well, hold on, this might be what, like, I might have found it. I might have figured it out. And I start to ask them, I say, okay, so if that's the map of the astral planes, how do I prove it? And they were like, yo, they sent me a document, and it was like how to astral project. And in very short words, basically, I just laid out a yoga mat, surrounded myself with crystals, and you do this cool practice called rhythmic breathing. And if we all want to do it real quick, I'll guide us through just like 3 different breaths of rhythmic breathing. And what's really cool is actually that this document taught me is that rhythmic breathing is actually supposed to be our natural breathing pattern. But yeah, I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. But anyway, rhythmic breathing is supposed to be our natural breathing pattern, but it's really, really cool. I'll tell you, when you're getting into astral projection, you're just doing the rhythmic breathing and you're laying there. I remember the first time I tried to astral project at will, and it took me 20 minutes. And I swear to y'all, I was about to give up, but around the 15-minute mark, it was right around the 15-minute mark, my body started vibrating. In like 16 minutes, 17 minutes, I'm like, yo, what is this? The vibrations get stronger, right? I was like, all right. It's like, so I guess I gotta just like, just relax into this. I start relaxing a little bit. I'm trying at least 17 minutes, 18 minutes. And a really interesting thing happens. The vibrations get so fast, and I can like sense that my body is vibrating, but I stop actually feeling my body, right? I stopped feeling it. It's like I dropped out, and I was like, okay, something interesting is about to happen. About the 20-minute mark, I wasn't like timing this, but just off the top of my head, just imagining, I know it took at least 20 minutes for me to get into that state. This was a long time, y'all. But anyway, but after a while, I literally saw this winged golden figure standing over me. I later learned that it was my higher self, and it reached down. My eyes are closed, but I see it. And I'm like, what in the world? And I reach up, but my hand stays still. But I reach up, I grab its hand, and it literally pulls me out of my body. And it had something it wanted me to do. I didn't go somewhere on the astral map of the astral planes. We just had our own experience. And I thought that was really profound, because what that taught me was that our souls oftentimes have experiences that they want to share with us that shouldn't be influenced by other people. It's just something that's just for us. And sometimes we got to go into things more open-minded without intention, right? But then after doing that a couple times and recognizing like I have the power to astral project at will, I was like, okay, now let's try to go somewhere on this map. Man, when the map worked, and I was like, wow, that really took me. I started looking at them brothers different. I was like, no, we about to start hanging out. And I was hanging out, and a really interesting thing happened was I'm gonna keep the long story short. I ended up realizing that these brothers was running basically like a secret society. I never knew that secret societies could be so secret that you didn't even know you was hanging out in one. It was literally just a house where people were just coming to. I didn't realize at all. I never put it together. I was like, they're deeply spiritual, but yet they do music, and there's politicians and celebrities coming through here all the time. And it never clicked for me. But I once found myself in a situation in a room where, well, once again, y'all might have questions, and we can do a Q&A at the end, but I just don't want to take up too much of y'all's time. Literally, I want to get to the points of everything. Literally, I see the dude shapeshift, and it was like in that moment where I was like, okay, I found a bunch of truth, right? I found a bunch of truth, right? It wasn't that they didn't have the truth. They knew some truths, but I had to start redefining what it was that I was truly seeking, because it wasn't simply truth that I was seeking, right? Because seeking truth, I found myself around a particular vibration that didn't match me. It wasn't who I wanted to be. It wasn't how I wanted to show up. As I immediately realized, I was like, okay, this is not for me. I was like, this is kind of creepy, right? So I had to start getting really intentional about what it was that I was seeking. I wasn't simply seeking truth because to recognize, like, oh snap, there's shape shifting aliens out here working with. I was like, I ain't even gonna go into it, y'all. But I was like, once I seen that, I was like, okay, well, that's some truth that most people are not exposed to at that level, And so I mean, I got what I guess I was seeking, but now I got to get more intentional. I want to seek particularly the truth about how do I live my life in the will of God. For me, that was my intention. That was what I wanted. I felt like all the darkness and negative. I knew immediately that's not me. That's not what I want to be. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I want my life to mean. And so I had to get really correct on recognizing, no, it's all about aligning with something greater than me and figuring out what what the purpose for my life is and how can I perform that, right? So that led me on a deep journey, and it took a little while because I was deeply scarred by everything that I'd been exposed to. Slightly crazy for a little moment, going through a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. But a really amazing thing happened where the first time I tapped into the power of the subconscious mind. And this is going to be really important for you guys. So really pay attention. It was April 2nd, 2016. And I was doing everything. I remember after I started going to church with my grandma would go to church like every single day. I was going with her every single day. To be honest with you, I honestly, I wasn't getting nothing that was really helping me from it, but I was just going anyway. And I guess through that, I was kind of inspired. I started praying. I don't get it. My altar was a little different. I had like a fountain and plants and crystals and candles and whatnot, and I had incense going. But I would get on my hands and my knees and I would just pray. And I remember one day I went. I had no intention. I had nothing on my heart really. I was just I was just doing. I was just following the motions. I was just doing the thing. And I bowed my head to the ground and I kid y'all not, like behind my eyelids or wherever it was, I seen a light. And it was a bright, glowing white light. And out of the center of the light, I started seeing colors. It was violets and indigos and reds uh, and green and gold and white. And then I started to see shapes. And then the shapes started to form together and they started forming these fractalized patterns. And then out of the fractalized patterns, like a literal image just like emerged, and it was literally like a vision of my own future. And I started to watch literally what I realized, like what I had shifted my intention to be, and God had shown me, or what I call God, right, had shown me His will for my life, right. And that was such an amazing experience, and it felt like infinity. I was seeing this vision, and out of nowhere, I started hearing this booming voice, and I was like, it was just so empowering. And I came out of that, and it was like for the first time, after all this confusion, all this fear, all this anxiety, I felt peace. I had finally found peace. I was just like so elated. It was like everything I was turning to, nothing seemed to have the answers. I started to realize, I was like, man, no, I was like, everybody out here is lost. I was like, no, don't nobody have the answers. Everybody's just, I would call it everybody was just pretending, but everybody was just believing, right? Everybody was in their own thing, trying to figure out, somewhat lost. That's why so many people is going through anxiety and depression and things of that nature. And I was like, I found the one thing that I think actually has the capacity to bring peace. And when I found that thing, y'all, I started craving that thing like a drug. I was craving God like it was a drug. I was like, man, I need another hit. But as the famous saying goes, it's like when you try to repeat an experience, that's the easiest way to never have the experience again, right? Where you constantly, because then you have that intention, and you're trying to recreate something. And so it's like, wow. And I was just grateful. I felt blessed that I had the one experience, but I kept seeking. It was something that I wanted more than anything, was just to feel the presence of God again. It was the only thing that felt healing, the only thing that felt like it really took the weight off my shoulders. And I remember I was standing at a bus stop, and my thoughts at the time, they were, our thoughts are typically just in first person. They're always in first person. Right? I'm always talking about myself as I, me, my, right? Or my name or whatever. Or I'm not even thinking about me in general. And I started noticing, I was like, wow, my thoughts, they keep saying you. They keep saying you. It was so subtle, this voice, that I didn't even know, I didn't even acknowledge that there was a difference, right? But then I started to just listen to it, and I was like, and I realized, like, I'm listening, like I'm not thinking, I'm not making my brain move, but it's moving. There's something going on there. There's some form of mental activity, and I'm listening and I'm learning, right? And at first, it was hard to trust this voice, right? But then I started acknowledging this correlation where when I would listen to the voice, great things would happen in my life. But when I wouldn't listen to the voice, terrible things would happen. And oftentimes it would be like instantaneous. You know what I'm saying? And so then I started realizing there was this connection, this correlation. I still thought like, oh, it's just me. But then when I really just said, let me try it. Let me just try it. Let me just try to just do everything it says. And I started doing everything it says, and everything that I just showed you guys in these couple slides before. Hold on, yeah. These couple slides before, all this great stuff, all that stuff just started happening just because I started listening to that voice. That was the only difference. That was the only difference. So you might be wondering, okay, so you're just going to say, okay, so in order to understand consciousness, we have to connect with an infinitely intelligent source that could teach us about how to master our own minds. Like, that's impossible. How could that ever happen? Well, it's really, it's going to sound crazy, but stick with me. Please stick with me, because I guarantee you guys that I'm not special. I guarantee you that I'm not special. I'm not superior to anybody, or maybe I am special just like you, right? if I'm special, it's only because I'm special just like you. So we have an innate capacity to tune into an all-knowing source. It's innate in all of us. It's an aspect of consciousness. Psychology calls it the intuition. Some people even call it conscience or conscience congruency, where when you learn how to listen to your conscience and you actually begin to pay attention to, like, the relationship between how your life is flowing and how well you're listening to your conscience, you might see that there's some relationship, and you might realize that the relationship between you and your conscience is the most important relationship there is, right? But I don't want y'all to take this on face value. So I'm going to share with you guys 3 major secrets, things that they do not want me to share with you guys whatsoever, about how your consciousness operates, so that you can see how you can go from where you're at to really tapping into the full utilization of that connection to infinite intelligence and the inner power that exists within you. And once again, I'm not saying that this is a magic pill cure all thing. However, however, this is the major key to aligning with the will of the divine. And the cool thing is that The only other aspect to aligning with the will of the divine is overcoming our patterns. When we start recognizing when we can listen to it, the only thing that might stop us is, okay, wait, so there might be habits in the way. Okay, we'll talk about how to reprogram the subconscious. Okay, well then, but how do I make the time to practice reprogramming the subconscious? Okay, well we'll talk about productivity and how we can master our time so that we can actually make the time and make the effort for effortless integration. Okay, so these three secrets we have entitled accessing infinite intelligence, how to actualize the full potential of what it truly means to be a human. And then two, we have harnessing the power within, ancient wisdom for modern minds. And secret number three is effortless integration, unleashing the secrets to productivity. Let's begin, guys. Okay, now, so secret number one. Okay, hold on, I'm sorry about that. Grab this and move that. All right, so secret number one, accessing infinite intelligence, actualizing the full potential of what it means to be human. So just like I said, when it comes to the whole concept that you can transform your habitual mind, we must realize that in order to actually create change in our lives, we have to feel like it's possible, right? And anything is possible. That's the cool thing. Like literally, like as crazy as those moments that I just described to you guys were, being pulled into a different dimension, meeting a shape-shifting alien, all these things that I've seen in my life. As crazy as they sound, for me as a direct experience, one really amazing thing that I pulled from these experiences, and I pray that y'all don't have those experiences, but I pray that y'all have had experiences that seem stranger than fiction. I pray that you have had moments in your life that have taught you that anything truly is possible, right? Because when we can recognize that, then we can look at the next big thing. And that's that amazing quote. I don't remember who said it, but it goes, the man that says he can, will. Or the man who says he can, and the man who says he can't, right? They're both right. Doesn't matter which one you say, it's just based on whatever you believe over your life, that is the truth. If you think that you can do something, you can, right? That's all there is to it. So the very first step is we have to believe that it is possible for us to access infinite intelligence. And many of you, I might imagine, already have, right? If I did my job right at targeting the right audience, like I said, I'm hoping this many of y'all have already had transcendent experiences, right? We just want to increase the frequency of synchronicity, the frequency of mystical experiences, the frequency of transcendent moments. We want it not to be a moment where you remember, right? We want you to know and never forget. Okay? So the second part is, it says it's an innate aspect of consciousness, right? So, really interesting thing. I did this really interesting study where any and everybody that said that they could talk to God, I studied them. If it was Yogananda, he had a book said how to talk to God. I was like, I'm reading it. Like, okay, for sure. The major thing that he said was Kriya Yoga. You practice Kriya Yoga, there's some techniques that'll pull energy through the body and up into the brain, and you can actually heighten the energy of the brain and communicate directly with the divine. I was like, all right, let's try it. Tried it. It works. Look, I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Super, super duper famous book for creating wealth in people's lives. It says the same exact thing. It says if you up level your energy, it says that the subconscious mind is a direct link between us and the divine. It terms the divine infinite intelligence, and it says that we all have access to this. And by simple practices, things like sexual transmutation, love, and desire, we can actually up-level the energy of our consciousness and actually communicate directly with the divine. Tried it, it works. There's a really interesting guy, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He had a skill, and I actually found him late. I actually first found, and many of you might be familiar, and you may not be familiar, and if you're not familiar, you want to write this down. I found this thing called the Hemisync Gateway Experience, right? Which is a program that was used to train, unfortunately, it was used to train psychic spies, CIA and the US government, or US Army, I'm sorry. But it's available to the public, right? It teaches you how to do things like astral project or remote view and things of that nature. And I believe they have, you probably can access it for free online or through YouTube. I just type it in Gateway Experience, right? Hemisync Gateway Experience. That was a beautiful key for anybody who's looking for it. But I did those meditations and I read, they had a paper, it was a CIA document that basically breaks down all of what consciousness is and things of that nature. And so I read that and I'm going through it, and it says that they got the motivation to produce their meditation system by studying people. I mean, now, really, y'all have to do your own research. I could go deep into it, but it'll take forever. But one of the main people they were studying was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and his program called TM, which is Transcendental Meditation, right? So I did the Hemisync. That was profound. But then I was like, all right, let's try the TM. And Maharishi claims that TM is the easiest methodology for accessing the divine. He says it's the easiest thing. All you need is a mantra. Everybody has their own unique mantra, and he says all you need is the mantra. And if you say it over and over and over again, he said eventually your thoughts will start to simmer away, and you'll keep going deeper and deeper into the core of the consciousness until you're at the source of consciousness itself, and you've transcended time, space, and you'll find, he called the trueness of our nature as bliss consciousness. And not only would I say that him and his master and all the different yogis that have the same similar philosophy, but he just brought it over to America and used those English languages. But I honestly think that they got it right. They got it all the way right, right? They got it all the way right. But, but regardless, that was honestly the easiest method I found was TM. It's like, all you got to do is just sit there, but the most profound, it's not about the easiest, it was about the most profound methodology I found. It was called muscle testing. It's a doctor by the name of David Hawkins. Many of you may know of him, many of you may not. But Dr. David Hawkins is an author, and he's wrote multiple different books, and he does a lot of lectures. And he had a book that is called Power versus Force. And it was breaking down this thing called the map of consciousness. And he was saying how he learned how to verify truth using this thing called muscle testing, that our bodies go weak in the presence of lies and they go strong in the presence of truth. And this was like a real science, it's kinesiology, and people use this to diagnose patients. People use this to pick out, in different holistic medicine offices, they use kinesiology to determine which would be the best treatment for a particular patient. And I was like, wow, people really believe in this. He got real scientific evidence. You read the book Power versus Force, and it's like a science textbook, basically. Like he's going in, it's like, that book is like the perfect where science and spirituality meet, because it's like he's showing us how we live in this spiritual reality and universe, but how there's a science that proves it. And I was like, this is profound. And what was really key for me was just that whole concept of truth. Once again, just truth. And it was something that he said in there that was like, the more you begin to live according to the truth, the more that you uphold what he termed life-supporting principles, the more your consciousness naturally begins to raise. And therefore, I said here that observable truth is our ability to classify our beliefs and activities as either moving us away or moving us closer towards that innate sense of knowingness, right? If the high, if at the like, what could be the highest state of consciousness other than to be more at one with that thing that we're calling infinite intelligence, that thing that seems to know all, be able to grant peace and heal, right? Like no other. I believe that we're all just trying to move closer to our connection, you know, to that thing. That's what the word yoga means, to unite us with the divine. That's what the word religion means, to tie you back again, right? To tie you back to the divine again. And so we're all moving towards that oneness with this divine state of our nature. Or even the word Christian means to be Christ-like. The word Christ comes from the word Christos, which is this inner flame that comes from lighting the spark of the divine within you. You know what I'm saying? To be to where your words and your thoughts and your actions are just a reflection of the will of the divine. It's what it means to be Christ-like, right? And so ultimately we're all just moving towards this space of being connected. And the more connected we feel, we got to ask ourselves, what action led us to that feeling of connection? What beliefs are leading us to that feeling of connection? And if we feel disconnected, what activities or beliefs are pulling us away? And that level of science, that's something different. Because that begins to show you this unseen reality that's governing everything about life, right? And I've done that science, and through that, as it says here, I've compiled a body of laws for how to treat the mind and body in order to stay connected, to stay in flow with the mystical experiences of life. It's a real thing. I guarantee it. It's a real thing. When you can get yourself to live by these laws, magical things start happening. And as I said, struggle and suffering, for anybody who missed that, struggle and suffering is a natural part of life. I'm not saying that your life is going to be just peaches and cream. I'm saying your mind will be, right? Mentally, you'll be practicing mental transmutation like in ways that people won't even be able to understand. You'll be going through things and you'll just still see it as it should be seen, right? So that you can get the best out of every experience, because life is always happening for us, never to us, all right? I'm gonna check the chat just 1 second because so many messages now. Repeat the list of books, please. It's called The Gateway Experience. The book was just called Power versus Force. Okay. And so, okay. So this is secret number 2. All right. So we recognize that we have this innate power, and all there is to it is to accessing it is following particular laws, that there's laws about how we must treat our body and laws about how we must treat our character, right? In order to stay energetically aligned. All the different things that I studied, the one thing that they had in common was that they either dealt with the subconscious mind or energy or both. And that this thing about energy was one half body or one half physical and one half non-physical, where it was like this spiritual thing that was like kindness and peace, like things that you couldn't get a hand of. There's no way to grab a handful of peace, but somehow you needed to cultivate it to somewhat stay in connection, right? So those are beautiful laws that teach us how to do that. Because even though I say that you can't grab a handful of peace, peace is actually just like love, just like happiness, are neurotransmitters in our brain, right? Like dopamine, oxytocin, all these things. They're neurotransmitters in our brain, and they do respond to direct activities. So, secret number 2, harnessing the power within, ancient wisdom for modern minds. So if you guys are anything like me, I grew up in the church, and as a result, not only did I grow up in the church, but also my absolute favorite movie growing up was Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks Prince of Egypt. And there's the famous moment in the movie where he's like, Ramses, let my people, I ain't gonna do it for y'all, but let my people go. And I don't know if y'all have seen the movie or know the story of Moses, but Pharaoh, he literally, Pharaoh has all of the Hebrew boys literally thrown and tossed to the alligators and he has the Hebrews as slaves and all these things. And this is a biblical story. And therefore, a lot of us in mainstream culture have almost been taught to never glorify or to feel weird about glorifying ancient Kemetic culture. But there's a very important reason why I do. So we're going to get into it moment by moment, but there's a very, very important reason why I do. But I want y'all to know that as I'm stating these things, that I'm not seeking to go against any biblical wisdom, but rather to say that unbeknownst to a lot of people and contrary to a lot of popular belief, there's actually a lot of alignment and synchronicities between some of the biblical truths that are shared and the wisdom of the ancient Kamites, right? So here we have an amazing thing that everybody should read regardless of your religion. It's not about a religious thing. This is just an amazing statement that just so happens to come out the Bible. In the book of Mark, chapter 11, verse 23, it says, "Truly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him." That should say done. There's a spell check I see, but it will be done for him. So just imagine that for a moment. Imagine it's me, and I'm standing out in front of a mountain, and I'm looking at the mountain, and then I'm looking at the sea, and then I'm looking at the mountain, and then I'm looking at the sea. And I tell the mountain, I say, man, get over in that ocean. And I believe it in my heart. And unbeknownst to all the people living in this area, it's now because of me that randomly the tsunami is swelling up and overtaking this mountain, right? I'm gonna have to repent immediately, say, I was just trying to test the power of faith. I had no idea I was gonna drown out of. But you're telling me that if I believe that the mountain will be thrown into the sea, that it will. Well, if belief can move mountains, what else can it do? And what level of belief you think you could cultivate if you understood exactly how your marvelous mind operated, right? Because it's a beautiful thing that statement suggests. Because what it states is that all of the power is within our own faith. So the number one thing that we have to have faith in then is our own selves. When you believe in your own power, if you believe in your power to do the thing, then you can do the thing, right? Like that's the main thing I get personally from this statement is that it's all about being in a state of self-belief where you believe in yourself and you believe that what you say will come to pass. That's very powerful because now, if I can answer the question, how do beliefs operate? And it's really interesting because our beliefs are a spiritual faculty. Belief is a spiritual faculty, and they operate in what psychologists term the subconscious mind. So once again, if I can begin to break down how this subconscious mind thing operates, you're telling me not only can I connect with an infinitely intelligent source and find peace and healing, but I can also master the power of faith and begin to materialize things in my life. I don't really care to move any mountains, but I got some obstacles I could move. I got some problems in my life that I could solve, but I see some problems also in the world. I could be non-selfish and think global and say, hey, maybe the main power that I want to have is the power to inspire power in other people. If I could wake everybody up and we're all using our power of belief to change and make this world a better place for the next future generations to come. Ooh, now that's an impact that I can resonate with. That's something that I can get behind. Where we're making the world a better place with our true power, waking up to what we're capable of, right? All right. And so there's a lot here that we're dealing with when it comes to the subconscious mind. But how do we even work with the subconscious mind? How do we work with the subconscious mind? So that's a very important question. And there's of course tons of people talking out there. You watch videos on YouTube all day of people talking about working with your subconscious mind, and most of them will just talk about auto suggestion and the feeling is the secret, and power of the subconscious. There's all types of pieces of work that talk about dealing with the subconscious mind. But you know what? Most people fail to communicate about what the ancient Kamites knew about the subconscious mind. But back in 1881, Gaston Maspero, I don't know who that is, but he was an archaeologist, discovered the Pyramid of Unas. Now, if y'all are not familiar, the Pyramid of Unas is to date the oldest known human written record on the planet, right? It's the oldest written record on the planet, right? According to the text, it's over 10,000 years old. I think it's called carbon dating or something like that, where they use science to test the date. Now they say that it's only like 4,500 years old, right? That it occurred somewhere, or maybe like 5,000. It's like 4,500 years old. It's like around 3,200 BC or something like that. And then, according to the Bible, Moses was like 1440 BC. And so, what's really interesting there is like I just want to point that out for people so that false belief doesn't get in your way of hearing what I'm trying to share. I just want y'all to know what they knew about how the mind operated. But if you can grasp that this empire, according to text, was over 10,000 years long, but according to science was maybe about 4,500 years long, but there was at least like a 2,000-year long period in between what I'm about to share with you guys and when the ancient Kamites supposedly had slaves, right? But now, these ancient scrolls were reviewed by initiates of the ancient Kemetic mysteries. If y'all don't know, back in ancient Kemet, they had these things called mystery schools, and those mystery schools are still maintained today. They're still maintained today. What we know is secret societies, and some are actually good on this planet. Like, believe it or not, like some societies operate in secret because, and there's traditions in multiple different cultures. It's not just like one. There's multiple different cultures where there's wisdom holders, where there are people that make sure that wisdom is maintained in its perfect state, because when you typically give things to the public, they mistranslate and they do all these random things and they try to put stuff out there and they just mess things up, right? And so there are people who guard this information that must be initiated into the practice of doing so, right? And these scrolls were given to those people so that they could break it down and explain to us what it even said. And the great revelation of these texts, the number one thing that we received, the number one wisdom that humanity received from these texts was a metaphysical glyph known as the Pa'at Neteru, right? Which loosely translates to the tree of the divine, but you may have heard of it termed as the tree of life. The symbol looks exactly, it's identical to the Kabbalah, but it predates the Kabbalah by several thousand years, right? And also important to mention and note, there's an obvious correlation between the Pa'at Neteru and the Kabbalah, because if you don't know, Kabbalah is the Hebrew version of the tree of life, and it was formed and given to the Hebrew people by Moses, who was a high initiate in the ancient Kemetic mystery schools. So there's no like question or confusion. It might, and honestly, they're similar. They're similar devices when you look at them, right? But the Pa'at Neteru has these different circles. It's like circles and lines connected, and each circle represents a different faculty of man, right? Rather, it's a mental faculty, spiritual faculty, physical faculty. But having that allows us to now diagnose where we're at consciously. You know, it's kind of like a doctor. Like a doctor needs to be able to see, like, oh, this is your biology, right? You have a respiratory system, you have a nervous system, you have an endocrine system. By knowing the inner workings of your body, a doctor can then come in there and heal the body, right? And so the pot neteru was like the inner workings. It was a diagram that described the inner workings of your consciousness, so that the priests and just the spiritual devotees of that time, you could call it that, the spiritual devotees of that time could actually diagnose your consciousness, right? And look at mental health beyond something that's just the brain, since we know we're so much more than just the brain, right? Look at something, looking at it from a truly holistic standpoint, and understanding that there's so much more to us that we should know. And the interesting thing is, psychology actually comes from the Pod Neteru. The ancient Kamites were teaching the ancient Greeks. There's some notable Greek philosophers who are known to have come out of the ancient Kemetic mystery schools, such as um, Leonardo da Vinci, Plato, Pythagoras, Socrates. You know, and many of these great men had probably more knowledge than the masses at that time. But in general, the majority of the Greeks were not taught any more than just the lowest section of the Pod Neteru. The Pod Neteru is broken into 4 sections, and they were only taught the lowest section. And that section in Greek, in ancient Kemet, it was called Sahu. In Greek, it was called the psyche. And that translated over into English, and we call it the psyche, and we got psychology, right? And so now we think that we have the study of the mind as if we know the mind, but we only know the smallest portion of it. And I know this because I've taken I've gone through psychology classes, sales psychology classes, worked with psychologists, trained therapists or whatnot. And some of the things that I'm sharing with you guys so they could better serve their clients to help them overcome certain patterns. I know that our formal education system does not know as much as the ancient Kamites knew. But an even more important one was not only just the Pod Neteru, but then the skill, the actual technique that they used to work with it, which was a ancient meditation technique that they called min ab. Now, in English, we would say that we would call this behavioral transcendence meditation. Now, behavior is simply a thought, a word, or an action. It's something that you do, right? And so to be able to transcend is to acknowledge the things that you do that you wish you wouldn't do, and recognize that you can stop doing them. You can transcend them, right? And the min ab is simply a breathing pattern that allows you to drop into your subconscious, right? And then they would write these reasoning statements out, and they would replay them in their mind and rewrite their subconscious, right? And now, as I'm saying this, I'm actually remembering. I never went over the rhythmic breathing with you guys. We won't go over the min-am at this exact moment, but it's very similar. Let's just do 3 real quick rhythmic breaths, and then there's very little left to this presentation. So please stick with it. We only have a little bit left to go. All right, and maybe this breath will give you a little bit more energy. All right, so rhythmic breathing. All we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 4 counts. We're going to hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts. We're going to do that 3 times, okay? And I'm going to guide us through it, okay? So on a count of 3, 2, 1, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, hold, breathe all the way out, and hold again. Now just let your breath go back to normal as we dive into secret number 3. So now we've been exposed to the fact that there is a breakdown of the inner workings of consciousness that we can look at so that we can understand how to work with the subconscious, reprogram it, get it in alignment with truth so that we can stay in connection with the divine, right? Or stay in connection with our infinitely intelligent source or power. So, so that we could understand what our true needs are. We also can exercise the power of belief when we really understand how our consciousness operates. And if we say, okay, well, but how do we get the truth in there? How do we get the things into our mind? Well, the Menob is a technique that we can learn to reprogram. But then the one major key thing that gets left out is then how do we just get ourselves to practice the Menob? I'm busy. Like, say, for instance, myself, I'm a father, right? I run a business. I like helping people. I have a wife. I have my mom, my dad, my siblings. I have my hobbies. I do music. That's not really a hobby, but you know what I'm saying. I have a hobby of drawing sacred geometry, but I have all these things that I like to do already. I have all my daily practices already, right? In this busy world, and not all of us are so super busy. Some of us actually do have time. But for those of us that don't, and for those of us that have a hard time getting ourselves to do things, well, here's a really cool thing. The secret is called effortless integration, unleashing the secrets to productivity. I'll just start by first and foremost saying that at Stanford University, there is an expert in behavior modeling and habit forming named BJ Fogg, and he came up with this thing called the behavioral model, right? Which is it's a formula that's like called like B equals MAP or B equals MAP, or some people say B equals MAT. So the B stands for behavior. So the behavior is what you want. We want to look at what is it that we're trying to get? What is it that we're trying to change, right? And now the M is the motivation. Why? That's your why. It's like, why are you trying to change? And then the A, look at this. I'm over here forgetting. Y'all give me a moment. I'm just pulling this up. And I appreciate y'all's patience. Just pulling this up because I want to make sure y'all get that, because I wasn't thinking to share that B equals MAP, but you know what? Everybody should walk away at least knowing how to get themselves to perform a task if they want to, right? And so it stands for ability, right? So you want to have a why, but then the ability. And so ability is things such as like, okay, if you're like, I want to do 100 push-ups every single day. Well, first and foremost, you got to check the ability. Are you even capable of doing 100 push-ups? If you are, is that reasonable? When you're looking at like how long that's actually going to take you, how much energy that's going to require, it might be possible, but will it be easy? Because the easier something is to do, the more likely you are to do it, right? And then P stands for prompt, or you could, like I said, you could either call it P or T. T would be trigger. So either prompt or trigger, but that's like a notification. Like rather it's a sticky note that you hang on your fridge, in your bathroom mirror. You can have like a yellow, like those little yellow pads, those notepads hang on your door. as a reminder. You can set notifications on your phone, alarms, and things of that nature. There's different apps. There's habit forming apps. Like there's an app called Loop Habit, right? So these are all different things that I want everybody to be able to walk away with, regardless. Because if you can just get yourself to do something, that's very powerful. But then let's talk about how can we create the space. So the time and the space, first and foremost, let's remember, okay, it might be hard to get ourselves to do the min-op initially, but once we actually perform the technique and rewrite our subconscious, if we can eliminate a bad habit that's either sucking energy or time out of our life, then even though it took us time to do that, that process actually frees up more time, right? Like, let's say you have a habit of drinking alcohol way more than you want to, right? I'm not like, by law, like, meaning when I say like observable truths, certain things that are going to pull you closer towards that internal source versus pull you away from that internal source, that might be something that I have some commentary to say about drinking alcohol, but I'm not here to judge. I'm nobody's judge, right? At all. If you want to drink alcohol, that's free will. You should do whatever you want. But if you don't want to, right, but you still find yourself doing it, how do you change, right? How do you change? Well, you say, okay, I got this course. Okay, behavior. All right. Like, we're gonna figure something out, some type of activity that I can shift, something I can do. Clearly, the behavior can't be to stop, so we got to find something to replace it with. So we're gonna find something to replace it with. We're gonna make it easy. We're gonna make it high level motivation. If I do this, I'm gonna reward myself with X, Y, Z, and so I can be really motivated. Or if I drink alcohol again, I'm gonna throw away my favorite thing or whatnot, so I could be really motivated to not do the activity that I was doing and really motivated to do the activity that I want to do, right? And then I'm going to set alarms so I can get myself to do it, right? And I'll do the meditation practice, rewrite my subconscious, and I might even have an accountability partner that's holding me accountable throughout the process so that I can really overcome it. And it might take a lot of time, momentum, right? Like, momentum is a really big thing where it might take a lot of time to counteract the momentum that's going in the opposite way. If you've been building a habit going this way for your whole life, it might take a minute to get it going in the opposite way. But once it's going, it's, that's how momentum works. It's gonna get easy eventually, right? And then when it's easy and you're like, okay, and you just let it go completely, I'm because I'm not inebriated, I don't know. I can just think clearer, and therefore I get things done faster. And because I'm not hung over the next day, I don't know. It's like I just got back more time. So you see how just by eliminating bad habits, we can actually free up more time. So this shouldn't take away time. This honestly should give you more time. But then there's aspects like time management, and there's tons of different techniques for time management. But I enjoy this thing called chunking, where you take your life and you look at the personal aspect of your life and you look at the professional aspect of your life, and you try to find 6 to 9 different sectors that you could fit your entire life in, on both sectors. So your entire personal life and then your entire professional life. And so I'll write all that down. And then it's really cool because you can write out your goals for each area of your life, and that might bring clarity for your life that you never knew was possible. And just clarity in general accelerates your productivity and accelerates your ability to perform, right? But then I personally use this thing called the chakra calendar, where I acknowledge that there's 7 days in the week, and then we have 7 chakras. And now everybody's going to believe in chakras, but there's a scientifically proven thing that some people just call energy centers at this point, but we call them morphogenetic fields. They're energy fields that exist around our body, and they seem to concentrate around our endocrine glands, which we have 7 of them. And so, they say we have 7 energy centers, and traditionally in the Eastern world, we would call these chakras, and each one of those energies are blocked by particular emotions, which are connected to different hormones and neurotransmitters. And so there's particular behaviors that you would do to cleanse those chakras. And so you can look at it from a scientific or a spiritual standpoint, but regardless, those simple, the spiritual side is actually just the simplified version of like, once you get into science, you're actually just complicating something that could be so simple. Because say, for instance, like, I want to get my root chakra right. Well, go get in nature and take your shoes off and put your feet in the ground, right? Like, that's something that is easy to find, is something to do to cleanse the root chakra, right? Right? The root chakra is blocked by fear. All of that information is out there in the world already, right? And so I'll look at these energies that are associated with these different days, and I'll set aside, okay, well, I have, I have 14 different areas of my life. There's 7 different days. So each day I'll focus on one area of my personal, one area of my professional, right? And now, instead of trying to do every single thing every single day and wasting so much time and energy just trying to figure my life out, now everything is organized and my productivity is shot through the roof. But then not only that, I want to organize the order in which I'm doing everything in my day by actually watching my energy. So I'm going to look at the activities that actually energize me. I'm going to look at the relationships that energize me. And then I'm going to look at the activities that drain me and the relationships that drain me. And I'm going to document that. I'm going to write that down and be mindful of it. And then if I know I might have to do a particular activity, but if I know it's going to drain me, I might do something that'll energize me first, right? And I'll organize my day in a way to where I can maintain maximum energy, because the more energy I have, the more productive I can be, and the more time I can free up, right, the better. And so, I'm sorry about that. So anyway, those are the 3 secrets. And with that, we can really carve out the time and carve out the space to reprogram our mind and tap into this amazing power of the subconscious, where we have these 3 amazing modalities of being able to tune in to infinite intelligence, utilize the power of belief to produce manifestations that are beyond your wildest dreams, and also to reprogram and overcome those habits that have been holding us back, or reprogram the societal BS that's been programmed into us by the cultural hypnotic societal mechanism that clearly, obviously, is just like those experiences that I had in that other dimension, where there's some dark force out there that clearly is trying to destroy this planet. I don't know if y'all aren't hip, right? So with all that being said, I just want to ask y'all a really quick question. I just want to ask y'all a really quick question. Y'all can either put it in the chat or y'all can unmute yourselves and tell me. I just want to first ask, are y'all getting value out of here?
As always.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Okay. Are any of y'all feeling like you'll be able to take some of this information and actually make your life better?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, let me ask y'all. I took all this and I put together this amazing offer where I've combined all of these things that I'm talking to you guys about to produce something that I think will really transform your life. I just want to ask, y'all mind if I share it with you guys?
Please share.
Okay. Okay, so this is the Self Masterclass. And it's just the best thing on the market for exploring consciousness. The only thing, in my personal opinion, that's anywhere near close as far as the results and the efficacy of what it is that I'm sharing here would be if you were to go get a residency, or I shared that HemiSync thing. If you do a residency, it's very different than just what's online for free. But the residency, is $20,000. Really steep. And you have to fly somewhere and, and stay for a while. And like, I know for me, at this point in my life, when I have a child, and a child on the way, it's not really a likely possibility for me to participate in at this moment, right? But then you also have the option of, you could fly out to India, and, you could go to Rishikesh and practice with some of the yogis. And I'm sure some of the yogis have some amazing yogic secrets that they could share that'll really give us some power for controlling our consciousness. But ultimately, outside of those things, I really don't know of anything better on the market for learning how to properly explore our consciousness in the most effective manner that you could ever imagine. And so within this, let me see, hold on. Within this, I gotta move all this stuff again. Oh, that. This is so funny. Let's see. Okay, so within this, what you get access to, you get access to the Self Masterclass, which is the course, which is 9 videos, which breaks down, it's actually 10 videos. So you get 9 videos, which is the Self Masterclass, which is just breaking down how all the inner workings of consciousness as we've described it. And then you get the integration portion, which breaks down those, how to really utilize time management and energy management to, to the best of your benefit so you can get the most out of the thing. You also get the Paradigm Designs Meditation Adventure, where you're getting 3 different meditations for reprogramming your subconscious. Then you get the Celestial Divine Laws of the Universe, which are written out PDFs that are describing all of these laws that I'm talking about, where you'll know exactly those activities and beliefs that are pulling you either away or pulling you closer towards the divine. I mean, I'm trying to tell y'all, just reading them and being aware raises your consciousness in a way that is unbelievable. And I was just reading something. I'm actually about to start. I will say I am about to start talking about what is it? Just some of like the conversations and the dialogue. I'm writing a book right now from dialogue that I've had with God about the laws of the universe, and I actually really want to start sharing a lot of that just freely on social media, because I think that a lot of it is very profound. But to have a bodily a collection of all the laws of the universe is unbelievable. It should just say priceless up there, but you can't quantify that. But anyway, then you have the art of clarity, mastering intention for fulfilling life, where that actually might have been the integration thing. Actually, that probably was the integration video. I think I titled it. I think I changed the name at a certain point. You have the Pranadelic class, where we teach you how to use breath work, actually, which is something that's a tool that you have at your disposal at all times, is your breath. And you can utilize that to actually shift your brainwave states. Drugs are classified in multiple different ways, but 2 main ones that are very important to look at, we have depressants and stimulants. The only thing that they do is a stimulant actually accelerates your brainwave state, and a depressant actually lowers your brainwave state. But you can do the exact same thing with your breath. And so we don't actually need drugs to experience altered states of consciousness. We can actually produce them ourselves. And the really cool thing is that with the breath, when you use cool down breaths, you can actually pull yourself into that state of alpha or theta and begin to actually reprogram your subconscious just by setting an intention and doing breath in a certain way. And then we finally have the Inner Alchemy Comprehensive Resource List for self-development and spiritual cultivation, where it's just a compilation of like all the different links to all the different websites, books, and things of that nature that have helped me out on my journey, including a website that has that how to astral project and the map to the astral planes and things of that nature. And so all of that is yours at, and that's a 21,000 plus value, but at this moment, you got to ask yourself, if I charge you guys 21,000, it's not to say that you haven't, but imagining you get all that, I'm not saying, would you pay that, but do you think it would be worth it? That's a really important question to ask. If you feel like you were able to tap in, shift your all of your patterns, to master the power of belief and make miracles happen in your life like nobody's business, like if you were able to do all that, would it be worth it?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, we got one. Absolutely. That's amazing. I want to ask Angela, I see you're in here. Do you mind if I ask you, I know you've gone through the self-master class. I've edited it. She went through the beta version, but I've edited it and added a little bit, but you went through the experience and we've been able to connect. I want to ask if you want to share any of what your experience with the course was like.
The course was very mind opening. He resonated with me on so many different levels, like stuff that you think you intuitively know, you want to know why, and it just, you break it down just like level by level, starting with the very basic up into learning more and more knowledge, and you just compound on each thing, and you really come away with knowing how to apply, like just like today's class.
Mm.
I told you I had problems with motivation and self-motivation. You just broke down how to be productive and gave me strategies that I could start, applying. So it's just that easy. Simple strategies, nothing mind-blowing and hard, that you could just start applying a little at a time. And then next thing you know, you're learning your higher self and you're on, your path. Just like that. No, it's just easy. Just talking and realizations within your own self that just come to light.
Mm. I just want to thank you for being here. Thank everybody for being here, but thank you for being here, Angela, because the same thing happened earlier, where it just happened to have somebody that went through the thing, and I didn't have the opportunity I didn't even have the opportunity to plan that, but I wanted to. So I'm grateful that it just worked out like that, to where we could actually hear from somebody who's actually experienced the course. But I just appreciate you, Angela, for always being so supportive and showing up.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. And it's not just for you, it's for me. It's for us. That's the key. You're
That is
giving
the key.
so much to me.
That is the key. Absolutely. Well, I'll say, so like we said, this value is over $21,000 worth of value. I'm not going to charge y'all anywhere near that, but y'all said it would be worth it, right? But typically I charge $3,000 for this course, right? It was 3,000, right? But since y'all stuck with me through this class, y'all saw my, y'all my dream people. I know, because I made all the content that I made specifically trying to find just the right people. I'm looking for my tribe. Something that's not added into this, because it's something new that I'm just starting up, is I'm building a community, like an online community where we'll be able to, and actually, may I ask if you mute your mic, please? It's just showing up. Thank you. But I'm building a community, and so everybody that joins in will have access to the community of like-minded, like-hearted individuals, and we'll be pairing together so everybody can have an accountability partner, so that all of this is a lot easier for us to integrate into our lives. Once again, we want to keep that integration aspect effortless, and all the like Angela was saying, like everything is practical, but everything we got to keep it simple, because I might overwhelm y'all with information, but I'm not going to overwhelm y'all with growth. Everybody grows at their own pace. But when you have a roadmap and you can take it step by step at your own pace, and you're always seeing yourself moving in the right direction, that's an impeccable, incredible thing, right? And so for right now, this $3,000 course, I'm taking 60% off, right? And it's on sale right now for 11/11, but this is only for today, and it'll be up until midnight of tomorrow, right? So if you purchase either today or tomorrow, you'll get it for 11/11. And if you don't have 11/11 at this moment, we do offer, there is the 4-time payment plan, which is it's like $257, right? So I believe that's the price that it is for the first payment. And then I honestly, personally, just complete honesty with you guys, I have absolutely no experience working with I think it's called Kartra. So I believe like it's like a monthly thing, or maybe you can set up how frequently you pay. I honestly have no idea how it works, but I know that first payment is like $257, and I need to actually figure it out, because I want to be able to make this as accessible as possible for people. And I want to just share, just for a quick moment, that I'm going to continuously share a lot of things for free. I'm going to always be sharing for free because truth is free. The truth is how we heal and save the world. It's how we make the world a better place. That's my ultimate purpose and mission. But the main thing is just that my ability to show up and heal people and share truth, unfortunately, based off of the construct of capitalism, which I did not create, it like requires me to have money to just exist and to grow and to expand and to reach more people and bring this awareness to more people and to hopefully get more people online with having the power to master their own consciousness. So I want you to know that not only are you paying for the value, and not only is it compensation and reciprocation, but it's also just simply making it possible. Like everything that y'all see here, it makes it possible. All the people who have supported thus far, and there's so many different ways to support. You can always go to zeranorium.com, and there's so many different ways to support. And when you're supporting, it's not just supporting me, right? But like Angela said, the things that you gain, everything that I'm giving, I'm only giving away value, right? And extraordinary value in so many different areas, from health to, I do readings and all different types of stuff. So I just want those things to be known. But and I think, yeah, it's on the screen, but what we'll do, oh, that's not at all what I meant to press. But what we'll do is come back here. And if you see all the way at the bottom of the screen, I should have thought that one through. All the way at the bottom of the screen where it says ZERANORIUM, right? That's zeranorium.com. You can go to that at any time, but like I said, today or tomorrow, it's going to be 11/11. And so that is the class for today. And I want to ask anybody, if y'all have any questions, concerns, objections, anything that comes up in your mind that you want to share while we're here. The floor is there. So I know there's definitely more I can share. Let's see. Well, I can actually, okay. I'll keep sharing some stuff with you guys while people are here until y'all are not here. Let's see.
I have a question.
Okay.
How would you say you can get past fear when experiencing like the out-of-body experience?
Getting past fear.
Yeah, because like ever since that happened to me, I made it to the point where so it kind of like freaks me out to like do it again or to try.
Oh, well, you mind pausing when I'm just for the response? I'm sorry. I don't know why I was like reverberating back. People ask me about fear all the time, actually. It's kind of interesting. And it's a very difficult question because the solution is it's an easy one. It's actually extraordinarily easy solution. However, it is not a solution that most people want to hear. I'll give you a story. On my 21st birthday, I was out in the woods with a friend. We had laid out a blanket, had like we had this beautiful setup. We had like, I don't know, it's like we brought our whole like front, what is the word? Brought our whole, I don't know why it's escaping me. What is the room, our whole living room to nature, right? Brought our whole living room to nature, laid out a blanket, set everything up, had these like Egyptian statues and gold seats and things of that nature. We had these crystal pipes. I had an amethyst and she had, I believe it was a green aventurine, but they were crystal pipes. And we had a plant medicine called DMT. I don't know if anybody's familiar with DMT or dimethyltryptamine, which has also been known as the spirit molecule. But I had actually done it many, many times. I've done it many, many times, but I had never done it out of a crystal pipe, right? And I had like crystals surrounding me. We like literally like made like a circle of crystals and like had incense. And I went to go smoke the pipe. And I watched the ground, literally, like I'm not kidding you whatsoever. This is literally what I saw. The ground, first everything started spinning. I don't know if anybody's ever done DMT in here, but some of y'all might think I'm strange. I don't know. But regardless, everything started spinning initially, and that's just the normal thing. It's like when you start to see the fractalized nature that lies behind all of reality. And then the ground came up and it flipped on top of itself. And then when it went all the way over, I was just in pitch blackness. And I tell y'all, I've never been more scared in my life. Never. And reason being was because it wasn't like anything scary was happening. It felt like I didn't exist. But what was scary was I was like, was I ever going to come back? You know? Now, it literally only lasted a couple seconds. And then the whole rest of the experience was actually impeccable and amazing. But because of that one little moment where I freaked out, I was like, I never want to do DMT again. I was like, that was like the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I thought I just like tapped out of all of existence for a second. Like, that was the scariest thing I'd ever experienced in my life. And so the next year, I stopped doing DMT. I stopped doing DMT. I stopped doing anything that was gonna get you high. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. It's like, I don't care if I'm doing it ceremonially or for spiritual reasons. It really doesn't matter, because I was scared. But the next year, I knew it was time. My sister she'd been facilitating ayahuasca ceremonies, and she's doing DMT and ayahuasca and hape and all of these different plant medicines. I don't know, y'all may not be familiar, y'all may be familiar, I'm not sure, but she's doing all these different plant medicine experiences. And I'm just like, I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm like, am I just like not allowing myself to have these experiences that I know can be transformational and life-changing because I'm scared? And so I was like, you know what? I've only ever done DMT at this point, but I was like, you know what? Let me do some ayahuasca. It's like they say it's supposed to be the next level up. I was like, I got to prove to myself that I'm not scared, right? So I did some ayahuasca, and the guy came around with the cup. It's like, my sister, she's facilitated, but she's like not like the main like facilitator. It was like, she was just like helping, but she's present, and that at least makes it a little bit better. That like at least I have family in the room, right? But he comes around with the cup, and he's like, it's time to drink. And I'm like trembling, y'all. I'm like literally fingers shaking. I throw it back, and I realize like, oh no, it's just tea. I'm like, I don't know what I'm tripping about. It's just tea. And we're talking and we're doing music, and I completely forget that I'm like, it's like, did I completely forget? Because I know why I'm here. It's almost like I just didn't want to think about it. And then about an hour goes by and I start to feel something. And if y'all know anything about ayahuasca, it makes you purge. The first person throws up, and I'm like, oh snap, nah, we took it. I was like, no, I gotta do it. I was like, it already happened. I already took it. It's about to come. you know? And for me, that was a very transformational moment, because on the other side of that, I actually had one of the most blissful experiences of my life off the ayahuasca, right? And it helped me to realize that fear always happens. It's not something that you can escape. It's not something that you can get rid of. It's not something that just magically goes away. Because, there's like, I've literally looked it up. There's like a video on YouTube, and it's like, your body is doing the same thing when it feels fear and excitement. The only thing different is your mind. So you just got to trick your mind, tell yourself you're excited. And you can do that. You could tell yourself, I'm excited, and think about why you're excited to do the thing. But to be honest with you, I've just found that the easiest thing, and it's not an easy thing, and it's why most people don't want to hear it, but the reality is, it's like, it's always gonna be something to be afraid of. But the real thing is just do it anyway. Like I nowadays, I typically do things because I'm afraid of them. Like, because after doing it, like maybe the third time, and I realized like every single time, like the main thing I was scared of was my own mind. everything that I thought was going to happen every single time never happened. That's number one. And number two, um, I'll just leave it like that. Like it never happened. I always like, oh, number two is just that it always led to something greater, always led to a blissful experience. And if you type in this is a practical takeaway though, for specifically for astral projection, is if you type in that hemisync gateway experience on YouTube, they break down how to create a force field. Like, so you can build a force field, because if you've had like experiences where you've had an outer body experience, yes, there are entities out there that can, attack you in that space, and they can attack you here. Like they could be attacking you now and you just not be consciously aware of it, right? But the hemisync gateway experience will teach you how to create that, they call it a resonant energy balloon. And there's many different quote unquote esoteric practices for psychic protection, but that is probably the most universal because it's a very simple visualization technique and it's effective, and they designed it specifically for out-of-body experiences. I pray I answered your question.
Yes, sir, you did.
Excellent. Excellent. Can me go over the rhythmic breathing? So rhythmic breathing is simply just where you breathe in for a couple seconds, hold for a couple seconds. Like I just did 4. Typically I breathe in for 2, hold for 5, breathe out for 8, and then hold for 6. But I do that because of the numerology. My number code is 2586. So it just happens to work where, with like when you do like the 444, you might notice like you keep a lot of oxygen inside because your exhale kind of needs to be a little bit longer than your inhale. But it's okay though. You can keep a lot of oxygen inside. It's actually very healthy for your body. So there's all different ways. You just choose different numbers. Like I've also done 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 12 with the breathing. And also you don't even have to count it. Like I said, rhythmic breathing is really just supposed to be our natural breathing pattern. When I first started rhythmic breathing, I remember I used to work at a restaurant called Fresh to Order, and I was a cashier, and I'd be at the front. And while I'm just like checking people out, people will come up and be like, "Yo, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "No, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh man, I'm just breathing. I'm just breathing," right? Because I'd be sitting there practicing doing rhythmic breathing, trying to reprogram my subconscious habit with breath, and eventually it worked. And I realized that the shallow breathing pattern that I've been doing my whole life was actually a habit. That's not the only way to breathe. Like you can breathe rhythmically, and when you naturally breathe that way, it's not that you're counting it. It's really just, and so it's not even like a requirement to count. It's just that you're making sure that there's a pause and that you're breathing fully, right? You want to have full inhales, full exhales, and pauses in between. And so you could do that for any sort of length. And, I teach, but that's something that I teach, in different courses and classes or whatnot. But I teach of different ways where when you slow down your breath, you can achieve certain states of consciousness and, go into different altered states of consciousness. So was there any more? Star said Blue Lotus. I didn't know what you were saying about Blue Lotus. I don't know how I keep doing that.
You can smoke Blue Lotus. It's a flower, the flower.
Yeah. I don't have it. I actually, I'm an ambassador for a company that sells ritual oils. I don't know if y'all are familiar with ritual oils. Yeah.
That's where I get it from.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, the next time you get it, if you want to tap the link in my bio, I make a little bit when you make the purchase. No, but yeah, ritual oils are great. Yeah, they're great. I think they have the best quality flower for Blue Lotus, rather smoking or for tea. I primarily just do tea.
I like to smoke it.
That's hilarious. So I'm gonna share let's see. I'm gonna. Okay, I just need to find out where I have this. Okay, I'm just share just like a couple more things that concerns that we might be having. So just I just want to make sure I'm touching on everybody's concerns. Definitely. I mean, I'm imagining based off of just the crowd that the thing is probably not a religious thing that we might have against it, but I just want to point out, I try with everything that I share and express to be extremely mindful of people's beliefs from all different types of belief systems. But certainly because I come from a Christian family, the very first thing that I tried to make sure that everything that I was saying was in alignment with was the Bible. And actually, initially, I'm just learning directly from an internal source and experimenting with reality. Like I said, listening to that voice, doing what it says, seeing how my actual reality responds, letting that be my first science, then actually going to science itself, going to things like epigenetics, quantum physics, holographic universe theory, nonlinear dynamics, all these different things, and finding that there are sciences that prove everything that I was talking about, right? So I found proof. So I knew it was truth because I could prove it. But then I was like, all right, let me go in the Bible and see if it's here too. Crazy thing is the same exact stuff I was finding on my own, I could point right out in the Bible. It was right there, right? Certain things that were discrepancies was not necessarily me being against what the Bible was saying, but oftentimes it was more so the other way around, the Bible being against what I was saying, where it was like everything the truth was like in there, but there was like stuff in, I realize what I'm saying now. I'm just telling y'all the honest to God truth. But with all respect to everybody's beliefs, but there was stuff that was in the Bible that didn't corroborate with the things that I had found. But that's just, neither here nor there. But I want to share just like a biblical verse for anybody that's caught up on that. So I had somebody, I have people in my comments all the time that misperceive some of my intentions. But in the book of 1 Peter 4:7, it says, the end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers, right? And I'll tell you, for me, it was that particular verse that was one of the kickstarters for me and saying, I want to redirect all of what I'm talking about to self-discipline and overcoming habits, because we need a sober mind and self-control, right? In order to, to stay in harmony with I was like, nah, we got to figure out how do we control ourselves. So I just want you to know it's right there. And I know that there's a lot of, pop-up overnight gurus that you see on social media and all throughout the internet. But as I've shared with you guys a little bit of my story and more of my background, I mean, I've been literally on my path for my whole life. Like I said, since I was 4, and, been what I would consider a spiritual devotee and part of spiritual devotee communities, connecting with like-minded beings and sending back, dialogue and building with some of the brightest minds, from talking to head rabbis to talking to some of the best people in the Nation of Islam to talking to, spiritual people that run like Sacred Sons or different things like, all these really great organizations throughout the world, speaking with the teachers and the people that teach the TM. Like as I was doing that study with the How to Talk to God, meeting so many people from the Self-Realization Fellowship and all these different minds that I've been able to connect with and have super duper deep conversations with. And I've made sure that I've definitely verified for myself what it is that I'm sharing with you guys before I ever took out the time to share with you guys. So this is not some just run of the night, somebody coming on the internet just after reading or looking at some YouTube videos. Like, this is my devotion. This is my purpose. I'm just living in it. So I just wanted to share that. And that's going to be the final thing I share. So I got to get on off and get ready for the next class. But thank every single one of y'all. Thank y'all for y'all time. And I pray that this has been deeply transformational for all of you. Always remember, the truth is seeking you. Peace and love.
Thank you. Peace.
Okay. Thanks.
Very great.